So I got several requests to make a video about the pipelines in Nord Stream 1 and 2 and the demolition that happened. Now, at this point in time, I'm sure that NATO knows exactly what happened. And the reason for that is when I was doing pipeline work, dam work, diving operations, things like that, we use UAVs. So we know they could put a UAV down there within hours of the event happening because you can drop it by chopper. So you know they've cambered that stuff. So one issue you have with repairing something like that is with all the natural gas that's entering the ocean, it changes the buoyancy effect of the ocean. So right now with all that gas bubbling up, it makes the seawater less dense. So what happens is you can't float a ship there. So until such time as you can get a handle on that and stop the flow of gas, you can't operate a ship in the area where all that methane and natural gas is bubbling up. Now, when I worked at a power plant, we had 2 high pressure lines coming in of natural gas because you can't imagine how much gas you can burn in a power plant. So we had a 30-inch high pressure line and a 18-inch high pressure line, and that fed one power plant. And our gas pressure, I can't tell you what it was because of confidentiality agreements, but I can tell you it's substantially higher than the pressure limits of 107 bars on what was operating on Nord Stream 1 and 2. And I was asked by several people to do calculations on what would happen with a ignition rupture of the pipelines running that power plant. We were approximately a half mile from the center of town, and we would have had somewhere between 1 and 3 kiloton equivalent explosion, because if those lines had ruptured, the nearest cutoff from our power plant was 7 miles away. So you would have pushed a lot of gas into the atmosphere and you'd have had a fuel air explosion. So just an explosion from that one plant would have wiped out half of the center of the town that we were in. Now, these high pressure lines in Nord Stream 1 and 2, they're very thick, well built, and they're designed for massive overpressures and undersea conditions. And if you look at the fact that all 3 pipes were cut and they were substantially apart from each other, that causes deliberation. Now, if you're going to do a demolition op on pipelines like that, you would use a UAV to ascertain the positions. Because if you look at where these pipelines were cut, the initial information said that the cuts were made in 2 member NATO countries. That would require the Russians to have permission and permits to enter that area to fix those pipelines. So that reduces the possibility that those pipelines would be repaired. Because as we get closer and closer to a full-on war footing, they're not going to allow Russian contractors into that area because it would be a secured zone. And the fact that these were geolocated, as I pointed out on another website, the precision that was carried out here in the location, they're not far from what would be international water or a waterway that's free for navigation. So these cuts took place in NATO member country territory. That complicates the situation. Now, what everybody lost sight of, and what we're going to do is look at the forest, because everybody's looking at the trees, and all of the channels, all the news media, they all missed the point of this. All you had to do was look at a map of the gas pipelines that are feeding Europe. And if you want to utilize Russian gas, the 2 remaining sources of Russian gas, one of them runs through Belarus, the others run through the Ukraine. So there's multiple pipelines running through Ukraine and a major one running through Belarus that supplies Russian natural gas to Europe. So what we've done in one fell swoop here, and people seem oblivious to, is they have concentrated the flow of gas through the war zone. This would actually result in the Russians probably trying to secure those zones from sabotage. So this gives them pretext to occupy portions of northern Ukraine to secure the oil pipeline to the Polish border. It also gives impetus for Russians and Belarus to work together to secure the pipelines through Belarus. So what's happened is we've put another choke point into the supply of gas into Europe. So contrary to what's being told, there is still the possibility of Russian supplied gas going into Europe, but it's through Ukraine and Belarus. Now what we want to do is see what other utility cuts happen in the future. So please comment. We'll see you on the next video.